Welcome everyone to our first of our presentations for the ECHO Rural Behavioral Health Support Series. I am Kate Jagla, the Executive Director of the Moab Free Health Clinic. This series is supported by the Utah Health Association of Utah, Project ECHO, and Cambia Health Solutions, and presented by the Moab Free Health Clinic and Southern Utah University. The series will continue bi-weekly through early June and include topics such as EMDR, suicide prevention, substance use disorder, crisis intervention, self-care strategies, and trauma-informed care, cultural competence, and internalized racism. Qualified presenters will include Dr. Elizabeth RHAU from the Huntsman Mental Health Institute, Ray Sweet from the Utah Department of Health and Human Services, EMDR certified therapist Paul Marshall, and Latino Behavioral Health Services, LCSWs. I will now let Carissa Wood, the program coordinator with Utah Center for Rural Health at SUU, introduce our first speaker.
Welcome everyone, and today we were going to be talking about the behavioral health technician program here at SUU. We're really excited about this program. We're really hoping it will help a lot of rural clinics and a lot of just providers provide better care. So without further ado, Amy DeBrenza is the person at SUU that is helping with this program, and she can answer a lot of questions.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. I'm the Assistant Director of Adult and Workforce Education at SUU, and I work through the Community and Workforce Development Office. Our function at SUU is to build training that connects adult workers or adult learners with micro-credentials, alternative credentials, short pathways, and basically training programs to upskill them to be better prepared for the workforce, whether they're climbing a ladder that they're already on or whether they're changing lanes into a different industry. And it's been really exciting to be a part of this program, the development of this program, because it is so new and we feel really purposeful in meeting a need in the community. As probably everyone knows, there's a bit of a health crisis in terms of behavioral health providers across the state, probably the country, and possibly globally. And the response to that within the state has been an interesting movement to create training to fill in some of those gaps. What has happened is that there is a need for behavioral health providers, but sort of a gap between entry-level service preparation and being a certified therapist or a behavioral health provider. And so the effort has been to create the behavioral health tech certification, which just passed Congress or passed legislature this last legislative session through Senate Bill 26 and received approval, which is really exciting for us. The pathway that we're going to talk about today is the SUU, the new SUU pathway for behavioral health. And I am going to share my screen. Can someone enable screen sharing so I can share my screen? What I'd like to show you is what we've developed. We have kind of two options to help prepare people to meet that entry-level behavioral health tech need in a way that, well, we hope that it fills in a gap that has existed in behavioral health. So is everyone able to see that presentation? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so let's talk about it. There we go. Okay, so what we have initially is whoa, I am clicking too fast. I apologize. What we have initially is a 3-course pathway, which is a micro pathway. And in this pathway, a person would get, basically there's some really basic level skills if you're doing entry-level work in behavioral health that a lot of people step into doing those jobs and they just don't have any preparation whatsoever. And so this provides a foundation for working in behavioral health. The first course, the Introduction to Behavioral Health, really helps our learners to see what is possible in behavioral health, what are the different types of pathways and careers that are available, what are the differences between those careers, what does it take to be successful in those careers. That's an introduction to what is happening in behavioral health. And then the second course, Personal Preparation for a Behavioral Health Career, helps learners to take a look at their personal attributes and skills, and align them with a pathway that makes really good sense for them, something that they're interested in and that they're well qualified or well prepared to do from a personal, personality and characteristic standpoint. Those classes together would articulate into a bachelor's degree if a person chooses to go that direction. That's 3 credits that would take the place of an elective in a behavioral health, whether that's a psychology or a social work degree. Those are followed by a virtual job shadowing, which we are hoping will give our learners a pretty good look at what it's like to work in behavioral health without having to step into that environment with all of the, HIPAA regulations and privacy issues that would occur in doing a job shadowing on site. So it's a virtual experience. All of these are online courses. The first course is 4 weeks, the second course is 6, and the third course is 6 weeks. So in 16 weeks, you would have this really solid introduction to what is possible in behavioral health, the different characteristics of pathways, both for preparation and what those careers actually would look like. And that results in a behavioral health foundations certificate, and that's the foundational certificate level. Also, based on the approval by legislature through Senate Bill 26 in a recent legislative session, the state has approved a behavioral health technician certificate, which is a slightly longer pathway. This pathway is designed to be able to be done in a year, and it includes the 3 courses that are in the foundational pathway as the first 2 courses and the NCAP course, but it also includes courses developed with SUU's psychology and social work departments. And these are the course titles. Whoa, stop. These are the course titles for those. Sorry, my mouse is really touchy today. So starting with Introduction to Behavioral Health and then the Personal Preparation for Behavioral Health. Then there are 5 courses that are meant to provide a really solid foundation in behavioral health skills, followed by that virtual job shadowing. And that pathway results in a behavioral health technician certificate. And if you notice in the year-long pathway, it's the same, those first 2 and the last course are the same, but each of those courses in between should also be online courses. I believe that they're structured to be 7-week courses, although they may be 14-week courses and you take several of them at the same time. And there are 5 of those that you have to complete at 3 credits each. So by the time you complete the behavioral health technician pathway, you would have 18 articulable credits that apply towards a bachelor's degree directly in a social work or psychology degree, although they could apply to another degree program also, but they're directly in the degree requirements for psych and social work. So if a person were to choose to become certified as a licensed behavioral health care professional beyond the behavioral health technician, all of these credits apply to that program. And I did not plan to present for a tremendous period of time here. My hope was that we would have maybe some questions that we could clarify. What I can say in terms of where the credentials or the certificates come from, if you take the micro pathway, these top 3 courses in the micro pathway, you take those all through community and workforce development. And I have a link to the registration, which we could maybe share with participants afterward if they were to request that. And the certificate that they receive is an institutional certificate, the Behavioral Health Foundation's institutional certificate. If a participant chooses to take the larger pathway, when they finish the second course, the personal preparation course, there's a coordinator whose whose responsibility it is to help them to connect with the greater pathway and also to make some connections in terms of employment, so career options and hiring options there. And that person would help them to articulate into the psychology and social work schools on campus to decide whether they're wanting to pursue a longer pathway for licensure certification, or if they're interested in a degree program, or if they're just interested in creating acquiring the behavioral health technician certificate. Because the behavioral health technician certificate is relatively new, just having passed at the state level, it will be interesting to see how it is developed and applied across the state. I think that SUU is pretty excited to be one of the first developers of a program like this. And from what I've seen from the other schools, while they may be in development, nobody is at a point where they're actually already putting learners into programs yet. So this is pretty cutting edge for SU, and we're really excited to be a provider for this service, this learning pathway for our rural health folks across the state. What did I miss?
Amy, that is awesome. I understand it a lot better now. I have a quick question. Like, so you said it can be attended in person and online?
It's all online.
It's all online, period.
Both pathways are online. And now some of the courses through psychology and social work, those 5 courses in the middle of the larger pathway, the behavioral health technician pathway, have still been under development. So there are some details about those courses that I won't have the answers to. I know that Grant Courser here at SUU is really taking point on the development of some of those courses, and maybe even Rita Osborne may be able to fill in some of those gaps. But basically, they have been taking content that they find really foundational to being an effective provider in behavioral health, and some of those are being pulled from other courses, and they were developing some of these courses. So these aren't necessarily courses that used to exist. There are courses that have been developed specifically for this pathway to ensure that a person who earns it is able to really have their feet under them in terms of what they're going to encounter. One of the criticisms, and not necessarily criticisms, but because this is so new at the state level, it's kind of undergone some scrutiny, and there are people with legitimate concerns, which I think are actually really understandable. One of the concerns is that a person will have a behavioral health technician and then they'll think they're a therapist, right? Which is definitely not what we're trying to create. What we are trying to create, however, is a worker who understands the scope of practice that they are ethically and legally allowed to engage in, and at what point should they be referring a person to someone with a different credential than they have. And one of the challenges that we have is in this state, we have a lot of workers working in entry level positions as support staff, office staff, mentors in RTC programs and clinics, who, because there's such a need for care, they end up taking on more than legally and ethically they really are allowed to or prepared to manage. And then they get in a little over their head just out of their desire to provide services, right? So both of these pathways, both the Intro to Behavioral Health, Personal Prep, and Virtual Job Shadowing, that first foundational pathway, and the larger Behavioral Health Technician Certificate pathway, are designed to help entry-level workers understand what their scope of practice is and when they need to refer those services, and how to best do that, how to do it in a way that the people that they're trying to serve don't feel like they're being, shoveled off to someone else, how to do that ethically, empathetically, how to validate the concerns that these people have who have more needs than maybe are being met by the current crisis of care. So that's one of the things. It's a response to people within the industry who have been nervous about whether this is going to create a situation where people are maybe working beyond their scope of practice. And we've tried really hard to build it so that it actually strengthens the ability of workers to work within their scope of practice ethically and empathetically. Rita, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Amy. I'm wondering if you could share some of the job opportunities that people with this certificate might be able to find employment in, or some of the settings.
Sure. And this is territory that is Bridger still here? Did he just disappear? Bridger may have some strong answers for as well. So one of the things that we know is that because the behavioral health technician certificate is so recently approved by the state, it's not like we suddenly have all of these new job categories that have opened. What our hope here is that people who would partake in either of these pathways would be better prepared to manage the workloads that they're already being asked, that are being dumped on them, right? So we're talking about office and support staff in clinics. We're talking about some intake services. We're talking about mentors and RTCs and people who are working within behavioral health, but who are not licensed professionals or licensed therapists. Is Bridger still here?
Yes, I was trying to wave my hand. I wasn't sure if you
Yay, I didn't see
like,
you.
I'm still
Bridger,
here. I was
can
listening
you
the whole
add
time.
to that?
Yeah, so you did a great job covering it. So essentially what's going to happen is we're working with through our net to create a listing for these professionals, but as of right now, you're going to be seeing a lot of the clinical stuff is similar to like a registered behavior technician, where these people are working with students with disabilities or adults with disabilities. You're looking at autism services, group homes, things that will eventually lead through like ABA therapy up through the ABA therapy track. However, ideally, this is going to be looking more like a medical assistant, where a medical assistant is kind of like the entry level worker, where they take a lot, like Amy was saying, take care of a lot of the intake, a lot of the basic vitals, a lot of the stuff that is then their supervisor will then be able to read that stuff and then perform a more robust and meaningful intervention because of the work that was already done by this entry level worker. And then that experience will then be able to stack into future mental and behavioral health careers, which, as Amy was mentioning, through the behavioral health technician certificate, they could use that to then stack into their bachelor's degree and then to their master's or graduate stuff. But you can also see we have like psychiatric mental health technicians, we have mental health technicians, but they, as of right now, do very similar stuff to registered behavior technicians, as well as office support staff.
I think one of the goals here is long term, we hope that maybe job descriptions will be reorganized in a way that makes ethical sense in terms of being able to meet people's needs. But in the interim, in the short term, it's not so much about in the short term creating new job openings. It's helping people to be better prepared to manage the workflow that already is being demanded of them, because there's a gap between when a person recognizes that they need help and they reach out to a clinic or some sort of a behavioral health company or facility, and the time that they are matched with a therapist and they begin their therapy, right? There's that big gap in the middle in terms of clinical care. And then you have, especially in cases of like residential treatment, addiction, recovery services, and those sorts of things, where there's a lot of time when support is necessary, but the people that are providing the support currently, there has not been a training for those people other than what is provided in-house. And many clinics and behavioral health providers are not able to provide a high enough level of training for those folks to feel really adequately prepared to meet the needs of the people that they're expected to serve. Rita, did you have an additional question?
No, sorry, I didn't take my hand down because I'm driving. Sorry.
You're good. It's all good. Well, any other questions, clarifications?
Yeah, I did want to note that if students didn't want to do the foundational certificate, I'm not sure if you mentioned this or not, Amy, but they could take care of, they could take a psychology 1010 or a sociology 1010 class in lieu of the intro to behavioral health and personal prep. And those ones, the psychology 1010 or sociology 1010, those are
It's
to be
social work,
required
not
for,
sociology.
what's that?
Social work, not sociology.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that can lead into their bachelor's degrees, and then at the very tail end, they'll still take the virtual job shadowing because that will link them up to 3R Net.
Yeah, the idea here has been we want to create a 1-year certification opportunity that ends with this behavioral health technician. Some of our learners we anticipate will be those that already know that they're seeking a bachelor's degree, in which case they will have this behavioral health technician certificate within a year of starting their journey. So they already have something to show for it. They already have that certification, and all of those credits will articulate. So there's a psychology specific pathway, there's a social work specific pathway, and there's this pathway, and any way that the student or the learner goes, they're going to have this behavioral health technician certificate. What is really exciting is knowing that there's a coordinator who can assist them to decide which pathway to take, what makes the most sense for me. Here's where I think that I'm headed, and they'll get that in the personal prep course. This is the direction that I think I want to go. What are the courses that I need? How long is it going to take? What jobs will I be able to do? What attributes do I need to develop in myself along the way to be really prepared to be successful in this type of a career? And having that coordinator, I think, is going to be a strength of the program. We're excited to be able to offer that part, and also just help the person make connections to how do I become employed once I get this behavioral health technician certificate. What do I do with that? How do I find work that's going to be fulfilling and that meets my needs in the short term and also helps me to get to those long-term goals?
So I have another question about the classes.
Uh-huh.
What is like the time commitment for each of these? You said like some of them are 3 weeks, 6 weeks,
Sure.
something like that.
So the behavioral health foundations, these first 3 courses, I don't know if you can see my mouse circling or not. Those first 3 courses, it's a 16-week progression. Okay. We're running one right now. Obviously a person can't hop into it right in the middle. So we're excited about the first cohort that will be finishing towards the end of June. Our next cohort will begin August 28th, and it will go from August 28th to December 18th, and that's the window for completing these 3 courses. Now, the truth is, a participant could complete this progression of courses and still at the same time be jumping into Sci 2030 or Sci 2300 or Social Work 1100, right? They can take more than one at a time, and in order to finish in a year, they would want to work with the coordinator to make sure they know when those courses are going to be offered to make sure they can get it in a year. The departments of psych and social work should be offering these simultaneously. So these 5 courses in the middle, those are not courses you're going to take one at a time, or you could take them one at a time, but it'll take you more than a year. You would have to do more than one at once to finish within a year, right? But the 3 micro credentials, Intro to Behavioral Health, Personal Prep for a Behavioral Health Career, and Virtual Job Shadowing will be offered again starting in August. And the idea there is that theoretically or hopefully a person could start in August and finish the entire progression by May of 2025 and have that behavioral health technician certificate. Was that clear enough answer, or do you need more detail? So
Well, and what does it, is it like just an hour or 2 hour long class, or is it just
understood?
totally,
Okay.
totally just on your own?
It's totally on your own. There is instructor support for the courses. So an actual instructor will be looking at the work, will be grading assignments, will be collaborating, making announcements and giving feedback to students. But there's not an exact class time, a synchronous time when they would log into class. So this is coursework that they'll be completing on their own time in a 4-week period of time. So they have 4 weeks to complete the Intro to Behavioral Health. They have 6 weeks to complete Personal Prep for a Behavioral Health Career, and they have 6 weeks to complete Virtual Job Shadowing. And within that time, they can collaborate with the instructor to whatever degree they need. in support. Most of the content is content that is reading and media, video content and resources that they're going to work through at their pace within that period of time. And the psychology and social work courses are supposed to be structured similarly, where I believe that they're going to be structured as 7-week courses. They may be 14-week courses, which is sort of a traditional model for college classes, but then you would have to take more than one at a time, because you couldn't complete in a year, if you're taking one at a time for 14 full weeks. So you'd have to stack those classes and take more than one at once. But they are supposed to be online, in which case a person could be employed and dealing with, all of the balls that we juggle, family and that sort of stuff, community engagement opportunities and responsibilities. And then at the same time be completing these courses, whether you're a morning person and you do it early in the morning, or whether you're doing it late at night or in the middle of your day, or however you need to structure that, because they're not synchronous, because there's not a specific time that they have to be logged into the class.
Veronica, did you have a question?
Yes, I was just wondering if there are any like application requirements, or if there are prerequisites for the psychology and social work classes. Like what would you need to do to get into the program?
That's a good question. The prerequisites for the psychology and social work classes are either Intro to Behavioral Health and Personal Prep for a Behavioral Health Career, or Psych 1010 or Social Work 1010. If they already have Psych or Social Work 1010, they could jump into the pathway, or if they take these micro credentials, they can jump into the pathway. And then as far as application goes, the application requirements are really, really minimal. It's a basic application without prerequisites that they would complete through the website for my office, Community and Workforce Development at SUU. And in terms of costs, I will say Intro to Behavioral Health costs $233. Personal Prep for a Behavioral Health Career costs $466, and virtual job shadowing is $99. So they're in it for $798, just under $800 for this progression. However, if an employer pays for their employee to take this progression, they can be reimbursed by the custom fit program up to 40%, which is fantastic. And this would be really, really good training for a person who maybe is already working in an entry-level behavioral health career, but with kind of inadequate preparation, or they really want to have kind of a stronger foundation. This would be a really great training for a clinic or a behavioral health provider to put an employee through, and then they get reimbursed 40% of the cost of that tuition. As far as the tuition for below, the intro, personal prep, and virtual job shadowing, those costs are consistent. They'll be the same throughout. The psychology and social work courses in the middle, they work on a traditional tuition model through SUU. So it's traditional tuition prices for those. And I'm not sure what those are. I apologize. I know that they're a little bit more than what we're charging for the micro credentials at the beginning and the end of that program.
Amy, this is Rita. Aren't those qualified for, if a student can qualify for FAFSA?
Yes.
They can get that support financially for that. And
yes,
then
and
I think we also,
go ahead.
Oh, I think we have some scholarship funding also, correct?
We do. So tuition, if a person would like to apply for the micro pathway, the pathway at the top of the screen currently, they can apply for tuition assistance, and that tuition assistance was created in a fund that was funded by the Utah Center for Rural Health and SUU Community and Workforce Development in collaboration to try to really to provide a service and get people through the program. So there is tuition assistance available, and it's right on the registration site that they can apply for tuition assistance here. If the person is being put through the program, or the program is being paid for by their place of work, they would apply for custom fit rather than tuition assistance. But that's a really good point. And if a person were on FAFSA, which is federal student aid, it is likely that they would want to take Psych 1010 or Social Work 1010 as their entry level, because that would be covered by FAFSA. The Intro to Behavioral Health, Personal Prep for Behavioral Health Career, and Virtual Job Shadowing are not covered by FAFSA. Those are options really for learners who are not on federal aid, or at least they haven't gotten on federal aid yet. Bridger.
So in my experience, when I was talking with various behavioral analysts when I was preparing for the virtual job shadowing course, I asked them what kind of things they would need for their registered behavior technicians, since that's most likely what these students will end up going into. And they frequently mentioned that these employees, what they wanted training in that wasn't being offered at that time was help with like empathy and mentalizing and how to be more personable, how to understand their patient more. And that's exactly what we put in the foundations courses. So that's kind of advocating for employers wanting to reimburse their employees, because that's exactly what this is for. So anybody that's already a registered behavior technician, this will only be able to boost your competence in your field as well. And I just wanted to plug that.
Agreed. Thank you for sharing that, Bridger. One of the things is that's one of the things that I like about the program. Another thing that I think is really impactful about the foundational micro credentials, the 3 at the top, is that it really helps a learner to take a hard look at who they are as a person, get some, self-awareness and what am I interested in doing, and what is my personality well suited for, and what characteristics do I already have? What characteristics can I develop that will help me to get there? But then also, I think one of the things that we're hoping this the Behavioral Health Foundation's pathway will do is help people to understand what's possible for them. There are a lot of people who want to make a difference. They would like to work in behavioral health, but they have a very narrow vision of what is possible. The only thing I can do is be a marriage and family counselor. I can only be an addiction counselor. I can, those sorts of things. And we've tried to lay out a lot of options for people so they can see the different branches of behavioral health, and they can maybe have their minds open just a little bit to, I did not even know that job existed, right? But it might be the thing I was meant to do, the thing that I am called to do, and that I'm going to be great at and be able to really have impact in my community. But understanding what's possible in the field, that information, I think, is sometimes it's hard to dig up, right? So one of the lovely things about this Behavioral Health Foundations is helping people understand, who am I, what am I well made for, and what is possible for me? Where can I go with this? So I can design a life that is both really fulfilling for me, but where I can make an impact and have the most success and the most joy and most fulfillment in my career. And those are things that are really important to us. I think those are some of the things I'm excited about the pathway, besides just filling a need, which definitely is a reality, right? We know that there is a crisis for service workers in behavioral health, but I think it also has to be right for the participant, and helping them see how it can be right for them, I think is going to be really powerful.
Amy, this is Rita, and I'm wondering if you could also speak to the impact this might have on a student who is maybe in a different career path, like heading to medical school, dental school, pharmacy school, or nutrition, taking a gap year and adding this to kind of their education portfolio.
Yeah, I love that question. Thank you, Rita. So one of the things that we find is a person may be headed in a very, medical profession field or whatever, but what they realize is that they end up encountering people in crisis constantly in their work, and they're prepared to handle the technical questions and the scientific requirements of the medical profession, but they're not really quite sure how to deal with the people in crisis in front of them, right? And when people are struggling with health difficulties and challenges, it often has a rippling effect across their mental health. What we're hoping is that a person, regardless of what job they or career pathway they are choosing, or where they're headed, that this foundation would really give them the skills to understand what they're seeing in the behavior of people that they're working with, and know how to respond appropriately, empathetically, know how to process root cause and what's going to escalate that situation and what's going to de-escalate that situation, validate people's concerns, and help them to come to a place where they can function at a higher level. So even if a person is not looking for a career in behavioral health, when they know that they're going to be dealing with folks that are struggling and that maybe behavioral health or mental health are some of those struggles, we're hoping that this will give them better tools to understand those people and just help them to feel more prepared to deal with the human element, which can be one of the most challenging aspects. And not even just among clientele, but I think that it's probably fair to say that all human beings struggle with mental health concerns at one time or another, whether that's just extreme stress or whether it is dealing with the mental health or behavioral health of people in their families or your teams. Even if you're not talking about your clientele, if you're talking about the teams that you work with on a day-to-day basis, understanding how to practice empathy, how to remain calm in an intense situation, how to manage your own stress load. And that's part of the personal prep for a behavioral health career course as well, is understanding how to manage your own mental health when you're dealing with a lot of people in crisis. How do you stay healthy? How do you take care of yourself? Self-care, I think, has shifted a little over the last few years, particularly post-pandemic, people understanding how to care for themselves. So those are all skills that we've tried to embed in the pathway to make sure that not only are you able to make a contribution to other people's behavioral health, but you also can do that in a healthy way for you. I hope that answered your question. Any other questions?
I had one more about the virtual job shadowing.
Okay.
Who are they job shadowing and how much of a commitment is that?
Got it. So there are some pretty intense regulations that make sense logically in terms of what a person can do as a volunteer in behavioral health, right? You have confidentiality and protecting personal details, and it's kind of a sensitive situation. What we have built is a job shadowing experience that is more like it's not at a specific physical location, so it's not a job shadowing opportunity where you are aligned with a company and you're going to be physically in their space. It's I'm looking for a word and it is not in my mind. Susan, maybe you can help me. It's looking at what you would experience in a job shadowing situation that is actually built to be kind of more of a generic or hypothetical job shadowing situation. And it happens through simulation and media, and you're digesting the content online in that same online kind of structure that the rest of the courses follow. So it's not job shadowing with a specific company. It is the experience of what you would get in a job shadowing situation, but minus the HIPAA regulations and the problems that we encounter when a person would be working with actual clientele. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, I was wondering how that would work.
Yeah.
Oh,
Susan?
I was going to say, would it be helpful to show a little bit of what that thing is in RISE 360?
That would be
It might,
fantastic.
it might be. Would you be willing to do that? Here, I was sharing.
Did you want to log on? You want me to share?
If you'll log in and pull up the correct course, because I don't remember what content is in which module. Susan has been the architect of these courses, and she's been brilliant. She's been working with a team of, and this is probably interesting information for y'all as well. The curriculum committee was comprised of 7 behavioral health providers working in lots of different areas in behavioral health, in order to provide a really balanced view of what was going on. And so that collaboration has resulted in this lovely piece of work, which Susan created. Susan, will you talk us through it?
Yeah, so this is the first week. Basically, it's the virtual job shadowing class. And you are introduced, this lady works in, her name's Vicki, she works in Mindful Living Behavioral Health, which is a made-up organization. She greets you, and every week she introduces you to someone else who shows you, what is being done. So in this one, she introduces So she talks a little, tells you about what you're experiencing, welcomes you, encourages you to ask questions. The first person you're going to be introduced to is Jonathan. So Jonathan comes and he says, I'm expecting you. I'm glad they brought you to me first. He's going to explain ethics and confidentiality because they're very important in wherever you're going to work and in this thing, is in this made up company as well. So he has you first, introduces you to the basics. So you watch a video. There's always a comprehensive knowledge check after each activity that you do. So students will have to do it. He introduces you to the next one. That's a video. This is another comprehensive check. In here, you're going to match the statement with its correct description. So you'll just drag and drop into where they go. You'll submit. It's going to introduce you to another. Now this time we're going to go on to the psychiatric online practice handbook. So we're making sure when we do these that all this information is correct and that they're getting accurate information. So he introduces you to this. Again, another comprehension check. This one, we're going to give little scenarios. So this happens, is that a confidentiality principle, or is this an exception to the rule? Because we want them to understand that sometimes there's exceptions. Sometimes, you do have to disclose some information, and it's very, and we do it in a way that they understand. So again, he's going to go into some more explanation. And then we have two scenarios that they're going to actually practice. So in this scenario, they're working with someone, he's a different cultural background, and he wants them to go to a cultural festivity with him. And he says, my family and friends want to meet you. Let's talk, I've been talking about you all month. So then you pick, how are you going to respond? And so you can say, I'd love to go and meet everyone. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to. I'll talk to my supervisor. I don't want to unintentionally do something unethical. So if we were to pick, I'd love to go and meet everyone, well, then we continue, and it tells you becoming close to a client is beneficial and it fosters a sense of safety. However, and then we explain why that choice maybe wasn't the correct one. And then you get a chance to go through all of them if you'd like. We have another scenario with Emily, and she's engaging in behavior that poses a risk to others. So we go through that, and then we get into the now what stage, and that introduces them to a reflection journal that they need to answer. So that's a little glimpse into the job shadowing and how we've handled that without them actually going to a place. 1 week they learn about ethics, 1 week they learn about de-escalation. All of this, of course, is within their realm of what they are able to do. I've tried really careful not to cross boundaries and to tell them to do things that they aren't capable or aren't able to do with these credentials.
Thank you, Susan. That was awesome.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was wondering, and being able to see that is fantastic. It looks really well done. Thank you.
She's pretty fantastic, Susan. Every day I think that. Are you able to find your stop share button, Susan?
I was just looking for it. Where did it go?
Your screen's going rogue.
I know. There we go. It came up. Okay.
So I think one of the takeaways that I hope that your listeners and participants here today can take away is that we've tried to construct it in such a way that they can accomplish it on their own schedule, on their own time, because we know that folks are really, really busy. Everyone's juggling all the things, right? But we want you to be able to accomplish this learning in a way that works for you and that also helps you to prepare for the life that you're trying to build for yourself, whether you're mid-career, whether you're changing lanes, whether you're just starting out and trying to build something. We really want it to work for everyone as best we can. And so both the way that the courses were designed and also the influence of the coordinator who can help to kind of mentor a person through what are their next steps and connect them to either further academic options or opportunities for employment. We're hoping that those things are really supportive for the learners that go through these programs.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Amy or Susan or Bridger or that they can answer? That was really well done. Thank you. I fully understand. And I love that there's incentives for employers and that it's affordable. Like that is really nicely done on that. So thank you so much. You did a great job, all of you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. You're welcome.
Turn time over to you,
And
Kate. Oh, what is Amy?
for your participants, I'll make sure that I send you the link to our registration so you can share that out with them.
Perfect. And we can link that with the video too. So thank you.
Perfect.
Kate, was there anything else you wanted to add before we end?
I'd like to add that what our next session will be. So our next session will happen on April 23rd, which is in 2 weeks, with Paul Marshall, who is an EMDR certified therapist. So please spread the word on this next session to anyone who you think is interested.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, everyone. And we
Thanks,
will see
everybody.
everyone next week.